We are approaching the second half of version 2.3 of Honkai Star Rail, so it's about that time for players to start thinking about whether they'll be pulling for the new 5-star character Jade or the Argenti Rerun banner. So today, we're going to look at what both of these characters can do to see which one will have the most value for you to pull for. And as always with these kinds of videos, I am mainly talking about my free-to-play audience and my light spender audience, mainly because these players do have more of a limited amount of resources that they can use. So I do think it is very important for them to be able to make good decisions in terms of their pulls, so that not only are they getting the characters that they want to get, but also they'll be able to enjoy the game as much as possible with those characters. Because if you're just pulling on everything as a free-to-play, you are probably not getting the best out of your account, or as good of progress that you can be getting out of your account. So to start out with Jade, she's an erudition character that focuses on follow-up attacks, and she also can buff an ally to help get that follow-up attack even faster. Her kit here, starting with her basic attack, it is a standard blast attack, so nothing really too crazy added onto there. But when Jade uses her skill, she's going to enter an agreement state with one ally, which will buff that ally's speed and allow them to deal extra quantum damage when they attack an enemy. But the cost for this is that every attack performed by the ally during the agreement will consume a portion of their HP. For Jade's talent, she'll gain charges for every time she or the ally with her agreement state attacks an enemy. She will get a charge up to a max of 8. And once you have 8 charges, she's going to use a follow-up attack that will hit all enemies. In addition to this, Jade's ultimate will also buff her talent's follow-up attack while dealing damage to all enemies. This makes me think that Jade is not only a character that can do a good amount of damage, hopefully at least, but she can also build up over the course of a fight to get even stronger as the fight goes on. Lastly, for her technique, she inflicts all enemies around her with the blind fealty state, which makes it so that they won't attack allies. When you enter battle with blind fealty active, it'll damage all enemies at the start of battle. Currently, that's everything we know about Jade's kit from the 2.3 livestream. We'll have to wait a bit longer before the creator experience videos come out for her to get the full info on her kit. I'll cover that once we get to it, so if you do want to see that and more content for Honkai Star Rail from me, definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button. But now, let's shift to Argenti. He's also an erudition character, but he's more of a traditional DPS character in how he plays. Both his basic attack and skill deal damage to all enemies, meaning that his entire kit is AoE, which is very nice for an erudition character. But his ultimate is what makes him really unique. Argenti actually has 2 ultimates depending on how much energy he has. So at 90 energy, he'll just deal damage to all enemies at a slightly higher multiplier than his skill. And while this 90 energy ultimate is pretty easy to get and is pretty effective, his second ultimate does have some extra value as well. If you get Argenti to 180 energy, he'll attack all enemies with a significantly higher damage multiplier than the 90 energy ultimate, but he will also deal damage to a single random enemy 6 extra times. So not only is the 180 energy ultimate strong against multiple enemies like the rest of his kit is, but that extra damage you get from the more expensive ultimate can also be nice when dealing with elites and boss mobs as well, because you're just going to get some extra damage on them for having the extra energy. Now for Argenti's talent, every time he attacks, he will gain 3 extra energy and a stack of Apotheosis. And each stack of Apotheosis gives him 2.5% crit rate. And since it can stack up to 10 times, you can get a maximum buff of 25% crit rate from this, which is a very nice cushion when it comes to grinding relics and getting your build all situated for him. And for his technique, he will apply the daze state to surrounding enemies, which will make the enemies unable to attack you. And when you start the battle against a dazed enemy, Argenti will damage all the enemies and give himself 15 energy at the start of battle. Lastly, Argenti does have some solid ascension traces. His first ascension trace gives him an extra stack of Apotheosis at the start of every turn, which does make him getting to the maximum crit rate buff much faster, since he would only have to attack 5 times as opposed to 10 times to get the max there. Then his second ascension trace will give him 2 energy every time an enemy enters battle, which just gets him his ultimate faster. And finally, his third ascension trace, it has him deal 15% more damage to enemies that are under half HP. So just a nice extra piece of damage for him as well. That's everything for Argenti's kit, so now let's discuss how much value each of them have for you to pull for. And as always, I like to preface this section by saying that, yeah, even if I say that one character is better and more valuable than another, you should pull for who you want at the end of the day, just to make the game more enjoyable for you and for you to, because you're pulling gacha games to get the characters that you want realistically. So if you're seeing a character you really like, and even if I say they might not be as valuable, and there's someone who you like really want, still go ahead and pull for them, because I think enjoyment of the game you're playing should be your main priority, and not like trying to rush to clear content, because that'll happen with time. But now that we've said that, let's start with Jade's pull value. So while Jade has some interesting mechanics and pretty unique ones as well, being a like pseudo support with the buffs that her agreement state gives, she doesn't really have anything to me that stands out that would make her seem like really good, especially when we've had other amazing DPS characters like Firefly, Acheron, and so on. Those two being the two most, and also Boot Hill as well. I'll put them up there. With those being super recent, Jade just doesn't feel like she has that level of, okay, this character is like really good here. And I know a lot of people, when they see her kit, they're like, oh, she could be an option for the IPC follow-up team. But the one thing with that is, for one, that team is relatively expensive. But secondly, if you have that team, I don't think Jade really replaces anyone, because Topaz has the follow-up attack buffs, and I feel like the only character you would replace there is Ratio, and Ratio is also still a very solid DPS option. And every player has him as well, so it's not like if you're missing, or every player who started before 2.1 has him, or before the end of 2.1. So not really many players are going to be missing Ratio. So Jade doesn't really have a spot on that team, and because of that, she doesn't really have a main team to put her on and for her to be able to perform at her best. I do think she could have some interesting teams, like maybe she'll work well with like Blade comps because of the HP drain and whatnot, but she doesn't have a place where it's like that's her best team by far and it's gonna compete with these other teams in the game. I don't feel that for Jade right now. And I do think that it is possible for other characters or new types of gameplay can come out in the future, and it's possible that I'm wrong on this, since I haven't gotten to play Jade. Obviously, we haven't seen any gameplay from the creator experience servers yet at the time of this recording. But for what I know now, and from what we know about her kit, I just don't see her being as valuable of a character as other options in the game that we've had. I do, want to, at the end for Jade, I do want to say she is still going to perform well in Pure Fiction, I think, just for the nature of being an erudition character and having follow-up attacks, especially when they have those follow-up buffs. So she can work well in there, but compared to some other characters, she just doesn't have as much value to me. So now to move on to Argenti's pull value. So while he is one of the better characters for Pure Fiction, just because his entire kit is AoE, and you can get his ultimate very easily, because in Pure Fiction, to get rid of just like this regular ad, you can just spam the 90 cost one, and then if you're fighting some elites or bosses, you can use the 180 energy cost ones. But when looking at the entire game in general, if you do have other DPS characters that perform well in multiple endgame modes, not just Pure Fiction, then Argenti is not as necessary. Just because if you have characters that are going to perform well in those other modes, they likely do outperform Argenti in like Memory of Chaos, likely in Apocalyptic Shadow, they'll outperform him. And if you already have characters that are doing well in those modes, I don't think getting a character just for Pure Fiction is going to be the most valuable thing for you to do. So I do think that overall, both Jade and Argenti are not at all must pulls, and if you aren't like super excited for them or like really want to pull them for like personal reasons because of how much you like them, you are more than okay to skip them, in my opinion. Now, since we've seen that will raise the question now of, if I'm not pulling for Jade or Argenti, what should I pull for? And for that, we're going to look at the 2.3 first half banners and the 2.4 characters. Now, I'm just going to start with the 2.4 characters because there isn't too much to say about them, since we don't know much about them outside of Element and Path. But for now, because we don't have much information, I'm not really going to say, oh, you should save for them, or oh, you should skip them. But I do think that once we see the live stream, I'm going to give my thoughts on it for 2.4. But Yeah, for right now, we're just gonna have to wait and see on that, but I will comment a lot about the 2.3 first half characters. And ultimately, if you are looking to pull during 2.3, your best option is gonna be Ruan Mei. Because Ruan Mei's buffs, they're super universal. She is still the best support in the game right now, and has been ever since she came out. So you definitely aren't going to go wrong with getting her, especially if you don't have many 5-star supports. Like if you didn't pull for Sparkle, didn't pull for Robin, Ruan Mei is going to be extremely good for you to get. And when it comes to Firefly, while she is an amazing DPS character, and I do think that Firefly, even by herself, might have more value than Argenti and Jade just because of her performance and her ability to weakness implant for her own breaks. I do think, though, if you are running her without Ruan Mei, if you don't have either of them, she's not going to perform as well as you've seen her perform from other content creators. So that is definitely something to keep in mind for her, but still a pretty powerful and valuable character overall. Just maybe not on the same level of Ruan Mei when we're talking about them separately. So overall, Jade and Argenti do have some value in the game, but I don't think they're valuable enough for players to go out of their way to pull for them currently. There are going to be some areas that they perform well in, mainly pure fiction, but I just wouldn't recommend pulling for them, especially if your pulls just got drained by the either boot hill or the first half banners for 2.3. So if that's the case for you, definitely do save, because I don't think that the second half banners are very good, especially the 4 stars as well, which we're not even going to get into. It's just a pretty crappy banner all around. But with that, that is going to be the end of the video. If you enjoyed, definitely be sure to like the video and hit that subscribe button, as well as comment down below if you are going to be pulling for either Jade or Argenti. But with that, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.